Welcome, everybody, to Fantasy Football Today on Wednesday. It is a more comfortable day for me. I'm back in the host chair. Was a guest on the Heath Dynasty Extravaganza yesterday. Heard from Heath that I was the best guest ever, so thank you very much. That is Heath Cummings here as well. Hello, Heath.
Adam.
Yeah?
You're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to say that.
Yeah.
I try to make you feel better, and then you come out and say it.
Yeah, I should have said
It's a bad job by you.
My bad. Dave Richard is here. Dave, hello.
Heyo. What's up, guys? How are y'all?
You know what? I'm doing well. Heath didn't even ask me that yesterday. I'm doing well. I just want to say Memorial Day is the best holiday. Is number one. I love it. Just love it. And I had a great weekend. And I'm doing great, Dave. How about you?
Rank it against Halloween, New Year's, and 4th of July.
So 4th of July would be set. Well, okay. It's I'm biased because Thanksgiving, we're working. Christmas, we're working. New Year's, we're pretty much working. Nothing going on. What happened there? You dropped your mic?
My mic fell over.
Probably out of shock for
I was getting ready
Adam's latest terrible take. Were you racing to go to your thread on Twitter of Adam's bad takes?
We're working those 3 days, so they're stressful. Memorial Day, not working, And I actually, you want to throw something in the bad food in the bad thread, the bad take thread. I prefer the food of Memorial Day and 4th of July to that of Thanksgiving, Christmas.
Oh, I'd
rather just
reasonable.
have burgers, hot dogs, and barbecue, basically.
So you Memorial Day was your second favorite holiday?
No, number one. Number one. And
the
other part of that, I think the end of May is the best weather time in the Northeast. That's really what it comes down to. It's beautiful a lot of times. So number one. All right, there you go. Okay, welcome to the show. We have the best and worst draft values based on early ADP, which isn't that reliable. There's a lot of great and a lot of terrible values right now, but we picked out
way to sell the show, Adam.
Well, we picked out 6 names
to
know based on current ADP. First, I'm going to help Heath out. Heath, I feel like you need my help, so I'm going to help you. I'm going to tell you exactly where you should rank T. Higgins, okay?
Oh.
Yeah. Where do you have T. Higgins ranked, first of all?
Overall or amongst wide receivers?
Amongst wide receivers.
10?
No, it's a little too high. It's got to be more like 11 or 12. It needs to be. Dave and I were chatting about T. Higgins yesterday, and we stumbled upon something really incredible. In 2021, he averaged 15.7 PPR fantasy points per game, which made him wide receiver 13 per game. In 2022, he played, 9 games with Jamar Chase that he did not leave early with an injury, that Higgins did not leave early with an injury,
Yep.
Okay? In those 9 games, he averaged 15.7 PPR fantasy points per game, which would have made him wide receiver 13 per game. The exact same numbers 2 years in a row. Make him wide receiver 13.
Yeah, that's compelling evidence. I was just thinking about how interesting it is that from wide receiver 10 through 13, you have 3 number 2 wide receivers, where I do. T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. 3, it's really strange, and I didn't do it intentionally. I'm just noticing it. But to have 3 wide receivers in your top 13 who are not number 1 wide receivers on their own team. To have 6 of the top 13 wide receivers be teammates.
Yes, it is interesting. And by the way, the other one in that group is Garrett Wilson, who's wide receiver 11 for Heath and Jamie, wide receiver 10 for Dave. So it's Garrett Wilson lumped in with Waddle, Devontae Smith, and T. Higgins. He is looking like the only one in that group that's the number 1 guy.
Unless DeAndre Hopkins is a Jet.
Right. And I can't imagine that Wilson. Well, I don't know. Would Wilson be in that group if he
probably not.
No.
If Hopkins signed, yeah. It is interesting. And then I brought this up earlier when I was making a, kind of a half-hearted, because I don't really believe it, but a bust case on A.J. Brown. Think about the amount of yardage you expect passing from Philadelphia compared to Cincinnati and Miami. Right? I mean, I would think a lot less. And
Sure.
we have these 2 wide receivers that are in the top 12, maybe 13. I don't know. How does that make you feel, Heath?
No, I think that's a fair point. I think that the targets in Philadelphia, I don't know that Dallas got it though, but I just expect Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown to have a high enough share of the targets that the lower pass volume doesn't matter as much. Also, Hurts rushing makes the passing game more efficient.
Dave, I want to get to a comment here as we're talking about the best values. Roland says, spoiler alert, Kadarius Toney is by far the best value.
Worst.
The worst value. Sorry. By far the worst value at current ADP. I was looking up his ADP. And
I wouldn't.
Question.
Yeah, I would not say by far, but certainly very bad.
It's 69th overall.
Not nice.
And that's wide receiver 34.
It's way too. I don't. Would I take wide receiver 34 in round 6? I guess that would be the range.
No, that's the other thing. Wide receivers.
You don't think so?
Wide receivers in ADP are going too high for me, and you don't ever take wide receivers as high as I do. So I think the answer to that's no.
Okay, it's a little too high for me, but I wouldn't fault anybody to take a number 3 receiver in that range. I think he's barely. I don't think this is too far off. Maybe like a full 12 spots. Is that too far? I think not. There's some that I think are further apart that we'll talk about today. You're hoping that he becomes the top target for Patrick Mahomes and that he stays healthy for 17 games.
Top target at wide receiver, obviously. Should we
target at wide receiver? Yes.
Should we look at the wide receivers going around him? Because it's after Jackson Smith and Jigba, Mike Evans, Brandon Ayuk, Tyler Lockett.
Yeah. So
Kadarius Toney. Then Jordan Addison's right after that, and then the Steelers guys.
I don't know if I like this ADP list because I think it really does include a lot of like rookie drafts because there's no way Smith and Jigba is going to go just after the end of round 5 as things stand now in fantasy. There's just no way.
Heath, what were you going to jump in there?
I was just thinking back to the Kadarius Toney thing and the hoping he becomes the number 1 target. Like if Kadarius Toney produces a Juju Smith-Schuster season from last year, are we happy with drafting him in round 6?
Yeah. Well, before the concussion, Juju really stunk when he came back. I don't know what happened there. But before the concussion, absolutely, he was a number 2 receiver, if I recall, like low end.
He had 2 huge games right before the concussion.
But he was pretty consistent in PPR. I mean, he's a completely different player. So that was like he was developing into a pretty much must start kind of guy as a low end number 2 receiver. Remember how bad receiver was last year? That's the other thing. I mean, at the very least, if he's Juju Smith-Schuster, that's wide receiver 34 is not bad value for Kadarius Toney.
Right, but
different. They're so different.
Dave was talking about what we are hoping for. And I think that like you have to balance that with what we know the risk is. Like, is there a chance? I know this sounds really hard to believe that Kadarius Toney could be healthy and not be the number 1 wide receiver on his own team?
Yes.
Is there a chance that Kadarius Toney, maybe even a higher chance than the average person, is not healthy?
Yes.
Is there a chance that DeAndre Hopkins is a Chief?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So that's 1 vote for Kadarius Toney as the worst value. Thank you, Roland. A lot of discussion about it in the chat. You want to join our chat? Go to youtube.com/fantasyfootballtoday. youtube.com/fantasyfootballtoday. You can watch all of our shows. If you hit the live tab, you can see the full length shows. Trying to find the stat on Juju.
What week did he get hurt?
Jacksonville week was week 10, so up to week 9 with a bye in there. First 8 games.
Weeks 1 through 9 on fantasy points per game in a PPR league. Juju Smith-Schuster was wide receiver 24.
Hey,
12.5 PPR points per game.
Okay, so
and what was the viewer's name who made the comment? Was it
Roland,
what was it?
I believe.
Flackvisor?
Yeah. All right, let's move on here. We got some great stuff that you can go out and buy if you want to rep Paramount or this podcast in particular. If you ever dream about buying a Fantasy Football Today podcast shirt, then jumping over to get a Yellowstone whiskey glass or Top Gun Maverick hat, well, now you can do that with the new Paramount shop, which offers a mountain of merch from the Paramount shows and movies that you love. Shop official apparel, drinkware, and accessories inspired by over 150 fan favorite titles like Paw Patrol, Yellowstone, Top Gun, Star Trek, South Park, SpongeBob SquarePants, and your favorite CBS Sports podcasts like Fantasy Football Today, Pick Six, Cover 3, Paramount Shop, where products are paramount. And we got a code for you. Use the code SUMMER to save 20% site-wide. Offer expires at the end of, gotta do it now. End of May. Get on there right now. The Paramount Shop. You got a day. Summer. Use the code SUMMER. Get 20% off site-wide. All right, news and notes. And then we'll take a quick break, and then we'll give you the best and worst draft values. Heath, I know you wanted to talk about the two running backs that I have at the top of the news and notes. Breece Hall, unlikely to be ready for day one of training camp, according to Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic. And Javonte Williams has actually been limited at OTAs, and we heard earlier that he might be ready for day one of training camp. And you say something just isn't right.
Well, it's not what we expected. Javonte Williams' injury was more severe, although both, I believe, had multiple ligaments involved. Just different ligaments. And I'm not a doctor, but I did sleep at a Holiday Inn last night. What's wrong is that in ADP, and Breece Hall was, when I was trying to find my three worst, was at one point one of my three worst in round 3 at pick 27, 28, 29 somewhere. And Javonte Williams was at one point one of Dave's favorite values at pick 93, I believe. Now, I do think if they were both 100% healthy, Breece Hall would be ranked ahead of Javonte Williams. But we seem to be factoring in an incredible amount of injury risk with Javonte Williams and very, very little with Breece Hall.
So what do you think the ADP should look like?
If you're asking me, I think Breece Hall is going to end up being in that. He's going to go somewhere between 20th and 30th overall. Everybody has fond memories of him from last year. Is it justifiable? Maybe. You could make the bus case against Breece Hall pretty easily. As if Javonte Williams starts participating in training camp, I'm worried that his ADP will rise to a point where it's too rich, and it's going to be like in the 40 range, because I'm not sure if Javonte is going to have the same type of opportunity to just absolutely blast off as the main running back for Denver. I think he's for sure going to share with Samaje Perine, unless Perine is absolutely awful. Whereas we've already seen the Jets, who I thought would continue to use multiple running backs no matter what. We saw it last year, and they went heavy on Breece Hall.
Does that matter when they changed offensive coordinators?
I think it might still matter. Hackett has talked in the past about using multiple running backs in his offense.
He has used multiple running backs.
I didn't hear what you just said.
I'm sorry. I said he has used multiple running backs every year but one, right?
Pretty sure that's correct. He also hasn't really called a ton of plays. You know, like he did in Denver. That was a disaster.
Can I interrupt real quick, because we have actually something very relevant, because Robert Saleh is currently having a press conference, and at SNY Jets just tweeted Robert Saleh saying he's very optimistic that Breece Hall will be ready to go for week 1.
Cool.
All right, so Dave, you're saying between picks 20 and 30 is where you think Breece Hall will be, and you're concerned that Javonte will be in the round 4 range, and that would be too high. Just to sum it up, then we'll go to Heath.
Correct.
Okay, Heath, go ahead.
I would put Breece Hall right now in the 40s and Javonte in the 60s.
Okay. But
you're taking a quarterback ahead of Breece Hall?
Yes. Okay. I think if you're taking Breece Hall around 30, then 3 quarterbacks are going ahead of him.
Yes. Yeah, I would think so too.
But if you knew he was going to be ready for week 1, where would Hall be?
If both were 100% healthy right now, I would take Breece Hall in round 2, and I would take Javonte in round 4. I expect both to share. I don't see any reason to expect significantly more touches for Breece Hall than Aaron Jones got.
Okay. Kyle Pitts is still rehabbing his MCL tear, but he is expected to be ready for training camp. Tony Pollard has been participating in OTAs. He's recovering from a broken leg. He's getting there. What do you make of this Jimmy Garoppolo waiver? He has a waiver in his contract regarding his foot. We talked about it yesterday on the Dynasty show. But Dave, what are your thoughts on the Garoppolo situation? And specifically, does it give you pause to draft Devontae Adams in the 2nd round?
Little bit. But I would expect that Garoppolo will get cleared and be ready for training camp, and then this will be much ado about nothing. Now, if we get to training camp and Garoppolo still isn't cleared, and there's a real chance that he misses the start of the season, I'm getting flashbacks to when Devontae Adams didn't have Derek Carr last year, and I was very anti Devontae Adams at that point. And then Jarrett Stidham went out and put on a show with Devontae Adams. So as long as it's not like the worst quarterback situation in the world, I'll still be relatively okay with Devontae Adams. Might pull him down a little bit in my rankings if he doesn't have Garoppolo. As silly as that sounds, because I don't know if Garoppolo is going to be necessarily a bonus or anything better for Adams than what Derek Carr was last year. Might be worse.
Deshaun Watson said he would love to play with DeAndre Hopkins. There are a number of reports on Hopkins.
Every quarterback.
Robert Saleh just said the Jets are not planning to pursue him. He said, we love our wide receiver group.
Do you know who the backup quarterbacks are in Las Vegas?
Yes.
Maybe I should have looked at this before I said what
Are they worse than what you thought of Jarrett Stidham?
Who do you think the backup quarterback is in Las Vegas right now, Adam?
I think it is. I'll just say Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Can I give you a clue? Can I give you a clue?
Yeah, but I'm not going to get it.
The coach is Josh McDaniels.
And his first name rhymes with Ryan. Brian Hoyer.
Yeah.
Along with
That's so
rookie
bad. Is
Aiden
that worse?
O'Connell is the 3.
Is that worse than what we thought last year?
That could be bad. That could be not good for everybody.
Joe Person of The Athletic thinks
Go ahead.
that Chuba Hubbard could be the short yardage back for the Carolina Panthers. Hubbard last year on 3rd or 4th down and 1 was 3 for 3, converted all 3. Miles Sanders on 3rd or 4th down or 1 was 6 for 8. But why do they need a short yardage? I was reading that article. I was like, do they really need a short yardage back? I mean, like,
here's an interesting stat, Adam.
Uh-huh.
Do you know how many carries in the last 2 years he's had inside the 5?
Chuba Hubbard?
Chuba Hubbard.
2.
6. And I believe 5 of them were in 2021. He scored on 3 of the 6. So it's not like he's got a lot of experience in a short yardage goal line role. He did score on his 1 carry last year from inside the 5 for a touchdown.
Does this do anything for your? I mean, Heath, you have Miles Sanders as RB2. Does this drop him? And you're not that high, but
and RB2. I think. It causes me a slight bit of concern. I'm not changing anything yet, but I said, I think before we were on air, that I do kind of view Miles Sanders in that class of running back who are really good at making big plays, but not as good in always gaining positive yardage.
Okay.
Chuba Hubbard, last 2 years on plays of 1 yard to go, whether it's 2nd, 3rd, or 4th down, 13 of 16 converting for the first down.
Oh, wow. So much.
That's pretty good. That's very good.
Then
1 play on 2nd. There was 1 2nd and 1.
What?
Everything else was 3rd and 4th.
Chuba Hubbard?
You said you were talking about goal line. Dave's talking about 1 yard to go.
I was not talking about goal line, but I guess I have to check that out. Baker Mayfield.
There were 3 2 and 2nd and 1s. I'm sorry.
Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask have had equal first-team reps at OTAs, according to Todd Bowles. And Buffalo offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey said that Dalton Kincaid, rookie tight end Dalton Kincaid, his role is TBD. They're trying to still figure out what they've got in Kincaid and whatnot.
Sure.
And
sure, Ken.
Michael DeRocco of – all right, go ahead.
Of course it is. He's a rookie tight end.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I probably didn't need to include this in the notes, but because it's kind of obvious.
No, I think it's good because Twitter is acting like Dalton Kincaid has already earned 90 targets.
What's his ADP? Let's decide if this
he is tight end 11, 118. Well, I think that's perfectly reasonable. That's exactly where I would take him.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think there are that many good tight ends. So I'd rather just
I'm on the underside of that. Probably for the reasons that same reasons that Heath would say.
What are you going to get? You going to take Dalton Schultz?
Yes, absolutely. I'm taking Dalton Schultz. Because he might be the number 1 target getter in Houston. And he's been a red zone monster for years.
Man, the idea that Dalton Kincaid is going to walk into a Super Bowl contender that has Stephon Diggs Gabe Davis, who they love, on the roster, and
Love
Dawson
my
Knox, who is making like $10 million a year, and just all of a sudden become a fantasy contributor is completely insane to me. I'm sure, like, I understand he's good, but rookie tight ends are almost always bad.
I mean, they are, but Freiermuth had a successful-ish rookie campaign. Kyle Pitts obviously set the rookie record.
Yeah.
I like the fact that he's older. He's what, 24? Maybe that gives him an edge to come in and contribute immediately.
I made that argument for Hayden Hurst back in the day.
I don't.
How'd that work out?
Okay, Hayden Hurst was not a first-round pick.
Yes, he was.
Oh,
He was.
damn it. No, I mean in fantasy drafts, which is where Kincaid is headed. I just think I love Kincaid. I think when you say that you're taking Kincaid at tight end 11, it doesn't really mean that you have a ton of faith in him.
That's
right?
true.
There's only a number of tight ends that you have a ton of faith.
So you're taking Kincaid over like Greg Dulcich and Chico Okonkwo.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
I'll take Okonkwo.
Schultz is actually, I mean, you do make a good point. He could be the number one target.
Might score as many touchdowns as Kincaid this year.
Okay.
Might score more.
Let's take a break. Oh, wait. Michael Duraco of ESPN says the Jaguars don't want to see Travis Etienne getting 74% of the running back carries again.
Nobody was projecting that.
I thought he got even more than that. In fact, he had that one game where he left early. But other than that, I mean, this was after the James Robinson trade, obviously. He was, consistently getting almost all of their carries. But
I have him as a top 14 running back at 55% of the team's carries.
Okay, let's take a break now. When we come back, best and worst draft values based on current average draft position. We'll be right back. So we're currently using Fantasy Pros, PPR, ADP. And, it's going to change a lot. There's not a ton out there. So take it with a grain of salt, but whatever. It's still May and still a good excuse to talk about these players. So best draft values. Dave, you said James Conner at RB 28, 84th overall. After David Montgomery, after Rashad White, Alexander Madison, here comes James Conner as one of your favorite draft values. You also said Alvin Kamara, who's going a round and a half after Conner, and Khalil Herbert, who's going super late as RB 40, 123rd overall. Who do you want to start with?
Let's start with Conner, who I have as my 24th ranked fantasy running back. He is not an attractive profile at all. But you think about the Arizona offense, and now it looks like there's going to be a big vacuum of targets with DeAndre Hopkins gone. And Conner's been there as a short yardage target for years. I don't know which other running backs are even going to play alongside Conner from game to game. There's huge risk involved with Conner. This isn't the case for him in round 4 either. This is the case for him in round 6, significantly higher than 93rd overall. You're going to get a running back who might be able to get you off to a decent start in PPR, and even against tough matchups in the past, we've seen him find the end zone. And that offensive line, theoretically, got better this offseason. So I don't mind taking the stab on Conner if you're thin on running back by the time you get to round 5.
I just can't even understand why he would last this long. I mean, what is the risk? He was RB9 per game last year.
No one likes the profile.
He's 28.
Right.
When you say the profile, you just mean his age, right?
No, it's age, injury risk. You look at that offense, it's terrible. We've talked about how they might just punt on the year and not even have Kyler Murray come back from his injury. If they get off to a slow start, that makes sense. What does that leave Conner? Taking handoffs and short targets from Colt McCoy? The team's going to play from behind a lot. I think Conner will still play, even though they're trailing by 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. But there isn't a case for Conner to be just this certainly there isn't much of a case for him to improve efficiency-wise. He's not going to break out for 5 yards per carry this year. It's just hard to expect that. But the volume, when he's healthy, is good.
Okay. He scored 23.6, 13.4, 23.4, and 18.1. This is like top first round pick production in 4 games with Colt McCoy last year. Just so everybody knows. 23.6, 13.4, 23.4, and 18.1 fantasy points. And that was against the Rams, 49ers, Patriots, and Broncos. All right, so James Conner is early good value here. Alvin Kamara about 100th overall, RB31. After Javonte Williams, after James Cook, then we get Alvin Kamara, which obviously is just a big mystery. We talked about him a couple weeks ago. I'll just ask you again, if he's not suspended at all, when do you think Kamara gets drafted?
I think he will get drafted in round 5, maybe even late round 4, if there is 0 suspension. And you can maybe even make the case that he should be in round 3. Last year, he had a career low in fantasy points per game, guys. He had 14.1.
Yeah, I think
that's
3.
still really good.
Yeah, what'd you say, Heath? 3?
3.
Okay, so people are going to be drafting soon in a lot of leagues. You've drafted some leagues, right, Heath?
No.
Some best balls.
No.
Eliminator? You didn't do any of that?
Oh, FC Eliminators, yeah. Fantasy Heroes Eliminators, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Just curious, like where Kamara's going or where
those leagues are incomparable. You could start 3 quarterbacks and you don't have to start any running backs, wide receivers, or tight ends if you don't want to. I'm drafting one team currently that is all quarterbacks, kickers, defenses, and punters. So
What?
I do not believe maybe that's the ADP we're using right now.
Okay. All right. Let me go. I'll just leave Kamara at that. Let's go to Khalil Herbert, Dave. I can't believe he's going 123rd overall.
It's ridiculous. This is a likely starting running back for the Chicago Bears. He will split reps, but he's their best back, certainly their most explosive back. I've got him as like a round 6-7 turn type of player. I'm excited about his potential in this offense. Certainly should continue to see good efficiency playing off of Justin Fields. Is he going to be the short yardage goal line guy? That's an issue because there are 2 running backs on the roster that could handle that role. One of them's a rookie. I don't know if Matt Eberflus strikes me as a guy that's going to give that job to a rookie. The other one's Deontay Foreman. We've seen him play well over the past couple of seasons. But I think Herbert leads the way in terms of opportunities in this offense. And I think he's a pretty good running back, too. Happy to take the chance on him right around 70th overall.
I wonder how much people are factoring in Roschon Johnson and how much they should be, because this just really feels like a situation where to me anyway, where the rookie is not going to get a lot of work this year.
Don't be so sure about that.
Why?
He's going to compete for that playing time in training camp. He's more than just a plotting type of rusher. We know he doesn't have top end speed, but he's a quality running back who can catch. And he might even be able to have a leg up in pass protection, too, compared to the typical rookie. I think he's going to get an opportunity.
I right now have Herbert at 93, Roschon at 111, and Foreman at 112. I have absolutely no idea how many touches any of the 3 of them are going to get. I don't know how anybody could definitely think that Khalil Herbert's a better rusher than Deontay Foreman. And I think Roschon's probably the best pass catcher.
The best pass catcher?
I think so, yeah.
No,
I mean, what would be the case that Khalil Herbert or Deontay Foreman is?
Well, definitely not Foreman. I just think if Johnson's going to make his – okay, look, this is just my guess, right? If Johnson is going to make an impact, it will be at the expense of Deontay Foreman. I do think Dave, you said he's not like a plotter. I think you said – I don't know what you said, but I think he's more like Foreman.
Thanks for listening.
I don't remember the word you said.
Foreman and Herbert are almost the same.
I don't agree with that. I think
huge efficiency guys that haven't shown the ability to handle volume or catch passes.
I don't really think of Khalil Herbert that way. I don't like Foreman. Foreman to me is just like a big running, like kind
He's
of.
not a plotter at all.
No.
Foreman?
No. He was an elite running back who suffered an Achilles injury. It took him a long time to recover.
He was.
And he's been awesome.
But he's not an explosive player.
He's had huge explosive plays the last 2 years.
Nah, I don't think he's.
Yeah, you might be thinking. You might not be thinking of. Foreman.
Deontay Foreman was the guy who was on the Panthers last year?
I know who he is. I don't think of him that way. I don't think he's an electric player. I think he's.
I think we need to do some research on Deontay Foreman explosive play rate the last 2 years.
I'm on it.
Oh God, I'm just saying. I view him. First of all, when we had Chris Trapasso on, Dave, to talk about Roschon Johnson, we all compared him to Deontay Foreman. So
sure.
I don't know what has changed since then. I think
neither of them are plotters.
I think Khalil Herbert is a more electric player than both of them.
Agreed.
And Roschon Johnson has done almost nothing in college, by the way, right? Like he was Bijan Robinson's backup, so we may not know who he is. but he's a 4th-round rookie, and a lot of times 4th-round rookies don't really do anything, like Zamir White, Isaiah Spiller, Pierre Strong, and Hassan Haskins last year. So some of them do, like Dameon Pierce, and Tyler Algier was a 5th-round pick, but so was Snoop Connor and Jerome Ford and Kyron Williams and Ty Chandler. And so you know my theory. I think a lot of times rookies don't make the impact that people think they will, and I think he's the 3rd running back, and usually the 3rd running back doesn't do that much.
Unless something happens to one of the first 2.
Yes, of course.
I agree. All right. What do you want to know about
Heath?
Deontay Foreman, Heath?
Go ahead, Heath.
Well, I wanted to go back to the pass catching thing. Khalil Herbert played 5 years in college and caught 34 passes.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Roschon Johnson played behind Bijan Johnson
Robinson.
and caught 56 passes.
In how many years?
4. So 24 more in 1 fewer year with Bijan Robinson on the team for 3 of those.
Doesn't always translate. I think if you look at some of the profiles of these running backs in college, people don't consider them pass catching running backs, even if they have caught some passes. I can't remember.
I'm not saying that he is going to be Alvin Kamara. I'm saying of the 3 backs on the Bears. Now, Travis Homer's there also. Like, maybe there's a 4-back committee, in which case we shouldn't draft any of them in the top 100. No, Dave, I would like to compare the explosive plays for Khalil Herbert versus Deontay Foreman and see if there's this wide gap. I think Adam views Deontay Foreman as David Montgomery.
I bet a lot of people do.
Better.
All right. Who had the higher explosive rush rate?
Khalil
over the
Herbert.
last 2 years, Herbert or Foreman?
2 years? Herbert.
No, I'd say I wouldn't be surprised if it was Herbert. I just don't think it's that far off.
9% for Herbert, 7.4% for Foreman, both of them in the top 30 among, it's basically the top half of running backs with at least 200 rushes over the last 2 seasons. Who had the higher avoided tackle rate?
No.
I would guess Herbert.
I would guess Herbert. I don't really put
You're
a lot
both
of stock
correct.
in that.
That's correct.
Herbert has terrific advanced metrics.
Which is one of the reasons why I really like him. 19.7% for Herbert, 17% for Foreman. Again, close, Heath.
And both above average, right?
Yes. No, I would say that it's right around average. Technically, Herbert is above, Foreman is below. Average was 18.5.
Does anyone care anymore about this? Like, I mean, I think it's interesting, but I don't know how
It's interesting, but I just think Herbert is a different type of running back compared to Foreman and Robinson. I think Foreman and Robinson are kind of, or not Robinson, I'm sorry, Roschon Johnson. I think Foreman and Johnson are kind of similar. And so those two might end up competing for who the number 2 guy is in Chicago's offense. I think Herbert's a lock to be the number 1.
Let's go to Heath's list now. And Heath, your favorite draft values based on ADP, early ADP. Aaron Jones in round 5, 54th overall, RB 16 after Ken Walker, but before Joe Mixon, J.K. Dobbins, and Miles Sanders. Running back, good running back value in that round. My gosh.
Yes.
Treylon Burks, wide receiver 38, and Samaje Perine, RB 33. So Aaron Jones, people will. Yeah, what do you think is concerning people and pushing him to round 5?
I would just need to first say that Khalil Herbert would be the first ever 6th round running back to average 8.5 touches per game his first 2 years in the league and be a lock to be the number 1 running back for the following year.
Did I ever say he was a lock?
No,
Completely not what I was saying. I was saying that Roschon Johnson, I don't think he's going to have a big role. Which team uses 3 running backs in a significant way? It doesn't happen.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think the Chiefs might have last year.
At the same time?
But regardless, I wasn't arguing they would use 3 running backs, as that I have no idea which one is better or will be used.
Okay, I will tell you that it's Khalil Herbert.
Yeah, obvious. I mean, you can look at his track record and his pedigree.
I agree. His track record, yeah.
I can't believe I'm trashing a former Jayhawk like this. I'm such a terrible person. Yeah, I don't understand. Like, Aaron Jones was just like why is Aaron Jones? And part of it is, but what RB what?
16.
That's not as awful. I don't think RB 16 should probably go in round 5.
Correct. Yes.
But I don't expect things to be much different for Aaron Jones. He obviously has more risk because he's older. But I think at least a portion of the community would think that because he hasn't had as much work, that he doesn't have as much tread on his tires, that the age doesn't matter as much. He was so much better running the ball last year than A.J. Dillon. I can't imagine Dillon getting a bigger share of the workload. He's probably still going to be close to second on the team in targets, like he always is. I think he's a borderline top 12 running back.
You know what's interesting? He's going, according to this early Fantasy Pros ADP, he's going 14 picks after Christian Watson. Christian Watson is the most desired Packer right now. Oh, interesting. All right, second player on Heath's list is Treylon Burks. He is wide receiver 38, and he is going after Jordan Addison and after both Pittsburgh wide receivers. What do you think?
I think that people are maybe overestimating how bad the pass offense is in Tennessee, in that, like, when there's literally nobody else there to challenge you for wide receiver targets, even if you only throw 300 passes to the wide receivers, you can get as many as you need. And I think Treylon Burks, a former first-round pick who had injury problems in his first year, that's being held against him too much. I expect him to be the alpha in this pass offense and be a borderline number 2 wide receiver.
And finally, Samaje Perine, 105th overall, RB33.
Everything we just talked about with Javonte Williams.
All right, would you rather have, let's go back to Treylon Burks then, Treylon Burks or Jordan Addison?
Burks.
Addison.
Ooh, debate. Dave, go.
I think Addison's going to see more targets per game. I think he's a candidate for 1,000 yards without taking too much away from Justin Jefferson. I think he's a great fit for what the Vikings need to do to oppose what defenses have been doing. He's going to be the plan B when plan A is double covered, plan A being Justin Jefferson. Treylon Burks played 7 games in the second half of last season, averaged less than 5.5 targets per game, under 4 catches per game. I think he's a good player, and I think he can absolutely break out in his second season. But I'm actually on board with where he's being picked. I'm okay with him being just outside the top 36 wide receivers. I'm okay with him being picked after round 7. I think he's got some downside that should be baked in just because the Titans are a slow-moving, conservative, run-first offense. And I don't necessarily agree that there's only one guy who's going to just soak up every single target there. I think Okonkwo is going to take a step forward. Kyle Phillips will be back. He's going to be somebody in the slot. Someone else could always step up. And I feel like it's safe to put Burks at 38th among wide receivers.
I do think holding his targets per game, especially when you're talking total targets and not target share against him, is not fair because those last 3 games of the year were started by Malik Willis and Josh Dobbs. Even if something happens to Ryan Tannehill this year, I think they'll have better quarterback play than that. And Chigo Okonkwo is a part-time player. I like him, and he's fine for a tight end, but I don't think he's going to play more than 50 or 60% of the snaps. Kyle Phillips was mostly irrelevant last year, a rookie just like Burks and not a first-round pick.
Heath, you'd agree that it's rare to put a wide receiver that's coming off a year where they average 5.4 targets per game as a top 40 receiver, right? Like,
yes, you have to. Again, as I just said, I think he played 2 games that he left early. I mentioned the injury history. He played the last 3 games with Malik Willis and Josh Dobbs,
right?
Which is like 25% of his season.
Sure, and the target per route run rate was 21.5%, which is okay. That's different from target share. You don't want to know what the target share is. I'm still expecting him to be better than that. I'm not saying that he's going to be a total bust and get rid of him, but I'm not putting him in that same group I don't put him in the group of receivers that I look at and say, okay, I can make the case for this guy getting to 1,000 yards in 17 games. I don't think he can do it.
Oh, I don't think that's the ceiling at all.
He was starting to get pretty interesting, Burks. He goes for 7 catches, 111 yards at Green Bay. He goes for 4 catches, 70 yards against Cincinnati. Then he catches a 25-yard touchdown against the Eagles and leaves the game with, I think, was it a concussion? He left the game. He missed the rest of Week 13. all of week 14 and 15. And he came back, and that's when he had those 3 games that Heath mentioned with terrible quarterback play. So he was starting to pick it up.
In the last 4 games that he played with Tannehill, he averaged 5.25 targets per game. And 3.
No, because he left one of them after 1 catch. This is why you got to Azer stat it. He played 10 stats in that.
Right, but we're going to get into this argument every time you talk about it. Like,
but
we might have started him in those games.
But you can't apply it forward. You can't say he averaged 5 targets per game because he was at 6, 8, and 6 targets in the 3 games, and then he played 10 snaps and he caught a 25 yard.
Right, but it basically includes the games. Yeah, it includes the games he played where Tannehill was on the field. It includes every play from the second half of the year.
Right, I know.
I'll stop talking because the stats just don't get better even when you stretch it out to the full season.
I know. I'm just saying you can't hold that game against him where he caught 1 pass.
Okay, well, I don't think the numbers are going to all of a sudden look amazing if we pull that 1 game out.
No, but I think Burks and Addison are similar in terms of prospect level. Addison obviously has a better quarterback. Burks is competing with Nick Westbrook, Kyle Phillips, and Chigo Okonkwo for targets. Addison's competing with Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson.
Mm-hmm.
One's on a team that's going to throw the ball 33 times a game, and the other one, it's going to be like 25 times a game.
And, better quality of passes, you would think, in Minnesota. But, okay.
Well, a little.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily like a crazy difference there.
I don't really think there's much risk to Treylon Burks other than last year's injuries turn out to be that he's injury prone. If he plays 17 games this year, I think he's going to be a top 24 wide receiver.
And let's agree on this. Well, I don't know if I agree on 17 games. No, I don't think he can get there. I think if you're drafting him right around this range that we're talking about, there's like no harm, plenty of upside. You should feel good.
We're going to take a break, and we're actually going to skip the worst values. We'll save that for another episode. We'll read some emails when we come back at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. All right. Thank you. You heard about the best values based on current average draft position. We highlighted James Conner, 84th overall, Alvin Kamara, about 100th overall, Khalil Herbert, 123rd overall. We all agreed Khalil Herbert is a phenomenon. Heath likes Aaron Jones in round 5. And by the way, based on current Fantasy Pros ADP, there are no running backs going in round 4. So RB15 goes in round 3, RB16 goes in round 5, and that's Aaron Jones. Treylon Burks at wide receiver 38, and Samaje Perine as a late-ish pick, round 9 or so, 105th overall. Okay, here are a few emails I want to read from Anthony in Tacoma. Do you ever consider doubling down on a fade or bust projection that doesn't pan out? Much like post-hype sleeper principle, are there any players you predicted to bust last season who didn't that you would double down on this year? And it doesn't have to be busts. It could be anything that didn't work out last year you're doubling down on this year.
Treylon Burks.
There's probably some. I don't have any off the top of my head right now.
DJ Moore.
Yeah, well, okay, but to what degree? Because last year you were, super
I've got him still as a top 15 wide receiver.
But last year you had him top 10, right?
Yes.
Not to bring up bad memories.
That's the whole point of this.
Well, obviously that was the point of saying that. Like Adam had already said it, and you wanted to say it again. It's clear that was the point.
No, Dave's not like that. I'm like that.
Well, Dave is Dave is sneaky like that. We're all like that.
We all are. Yeah. You're no angel, Heath Cummings.
No, I'm obvious about it. Mine is out in the open and clear, and I laugh about it while I'm doing it. Dave says not to do this and then does it.
Yeah. Well, he's polite about it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what I'm doing with Jerry Jeudy, because it's going to be my guy, I think. And that was Cortland Sutton last year. So I do feel like I'm going to that well again, but I'm changing the player.
Does Mark Andrews count?
Where are you ranking him?
Tight end 2?
No.
Everybody's in this tight end too.
Well, so we're all doing it with him.
No, I think he deserves.
Was he a bust last year? He was a bust compared to 2 years ago.
He was
a bust.
He was a top 3 tight end, wasn't he?
He was so bad in the second half of the
I think he was a bust at a round 2 cost.
He wasn't a bust until his injury. And then Lamar Jackson, and then he was an understandable bust. Anyone for you, Dave, that you're doubling down on?
I'm looking to see. I don't know if I've got anybody.
But yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's a good point. Just because it didn't work out last year, it doesn't mean it won't work out this year. So you shouldn't run away from a feeling you had that just didn't work out. This one's from Matt. Where's Matt from?
Matt is from Chico, California.
Dear Joe, Lamar, Kyle, and Steve. Ravens.
Oh no, it's Ravens quarterbacks.
Yeah, I was like, what am I
Here
missing?
I am trying to like use sarcasm through that one. And then I realized, well, maybe some people don't know that. Yes, those are all Ravens quarterbacks.
I'm commissioner of a family league, and with it being only 8 teams, I decided to make it a super flex league. This went over huge with league mates, etc. It got me thinking, shouldn't quarterback be the most important fantasy position, just how it is in the NFL? We all know how much of an advantage it is to have an elite NFL quarterback, but in fantasy, it's arguably the most replaceable position. Because of this, my question for you is, shouldn't all leagues become super flex in order to reflect NFL values on quarterback?
Yes. Love it.
No.
I think the only thing I can say against it is that it's not realistic of what happens in the NFL. You don't see teams using 2 quarterbacks at the same time, play after play.
No, not common.
Right. Can I? Shafee T's been talking about this for a while because of the Dynasty show on Tuesday, and I'd really like the ability to just click on things in the chat and have them pop up on the screen.
Oh, please tell me, what would you like? Oh, this? Heath is good with projections.
No, there was another one.
Adam was so high on Sutton last year. From Sutton to Judy, Adam's autobiography. Is that it?
I think, like, if I could just click on the button occasionally, it'd be fun.
Give him the access. Give him the email address. Let him log it in. Yeah.
We're going to eventually make you a producer of the show, Heath.
Oh yeah, you can edit after the show too.
No, I don't want to do that, please. Although you probably don't want to give me that.
No,
don't give me all those tools. You have no idea what's going to start showing up in the Adam Hazer thread take. It won't be me tweeting this anymore. It'll be Adam's actually saying it.
Oh God. All right. I don't think every league should be super flex, but I am very pro super flex. But I don't know that it's because I think it reflects quarterback value accurately. But it's fun. It's just really fun.
Wait, but you agree that it is completely, like, one way that fantasy football does not reflect quarterback value accurately is that we have nerfed quarterbacks to the point that we, like, if we were reflecting value accurately, quarterbacks would go in round 1 and running backs would go, well, when the ADP that we have today shows them going.
I don't really think about it that way. I don't think about it.
I understand you don't think about it that way, but this person just said reflects quarterback value accurately. So I'm asking you to think about it that way. How would you say fantasy football would reflect quarterback value accurately in ADP?
Superflex more so than single quarterback, but also, you end up starting like the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. So maybe if you wanted to really reflect their value, maybe you would do a single quarterback league and just increase their scoring or something like that. But we don't need to do all that. But Superflex is great. And for those of you who have never done it, it's not intimidating. It's not hard. It's just great. It's just really fun. Sometimes people don't want to change things up. It's kind of like how I feel about IDP. The first time I was invited into the IDP league, I was like, ugh, gosh, I don't know about this. But then I got used to it and I love it. But Superflex is just a piece of cake, and I totally recommend it.
You say it's a piece of cake, like it's, in what ways is it a piece of cake? Because if you have a quarterback that underwhelms or misses time, that piece of cake turns into like a well done piece of coal.
I simply meant that, yesterday on the Dynasty show, we were talking about rules for the new Dynasty League and tight end premium and return yard points and all that stuff. But you actually have to start looking up players' stats, and you have to start doing math and things like that. Superflex is not like that at all. If you're just a casual fantasy player, it's very easy to implement, and you will enjoy it. It will not be
so like from the aspect of explaining it to league mates, having them understand what Superflex means and what the scoring for it is. Yes, piece of cake, no question.
From Devin. I won my championship last year, so I thought it was time to trade some older players and reload. So grade these trades. I traded Eckler and Mike Williams for Dobbins and Christian Watson. Eckler and Mike Williams for Dobbins and Christian Watson.
I like it for you. You win that trade.
This was full dynasty?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
I traded Hopkins and Dalvin Cook for Deebo Samuel and pick 410.
If you're trying to win this year, I don't like that trade.
That's true.
Well, certainly the first one's terrible if you're trying to win this year also, I think anyway. They're all, I mean, that's all the point. He won last year, so he's just
now he's trying to reload to win in 2 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I don't think he got enough in the second trade.
I think there is a path that the first trade actually makes you better this year too. I don't see that path with the second trade.
Agreed.
I also traded Samaje Perine, George Kittle, and Aaron Jones. Samaje Perine, George Kittle, and Aaron Jones for DJ Moore and Hollywood Brown.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what value you place on championship week good luck charm John Mechie.
Well, he's not a good luck charm anymore. He's going to get drafted in every league. Assuming that he's okay for training camp, there's a hamstring issue slowing him down. Could end up being the target leader for Houston. I know I said that about Schultz. Those guys might be 1 and 2.
There are 5 players who legitimately could be the target leader for the Texans. Schultz, Mechie, Nico, Tank, and Robert Woods.
I'd be stunned if it was Tank.
Why?
As the target leader for the Texans.
They just run that short area slot target over and over and over offense.
No way.
It would surprise me if
This
he
is,
was.
again, too much stock in rookies, too much faith in rookies.
Well, look who we're comparing him to.
I think
Like we just said, John Mechie. John Mechie's not played football
bit.
yet.
I think Dave convinced me to put Dalton Schultz ahead of Dalton Kincaid in the Dalton versus.
I'm glad that happened, but like Dalton Schultz is going to get somewhere around 100 targets.
Yeah.
Whoever has that slot role should probably get around 100 targets too if they stay healthy. It could be Tank Dell. I think it's more likely for it to be Mechie because I think Mechie plays more. But he's got to get healthy. He's got to get on the field. We're dying to see it. Are you interested in the number of targets per game Treylon Burks had? Weeks 10, 11, and 12, the 3 games after the midpoint of the season where he played with Ryan Tannehill.
I'm not interested because I already know it, and it's
6,
7.
8, and 6.
Yes.
Right, so it's 6.7.
Total of 20 targets.
How about the last 3 games when he didn't have Ryan
No,
Tannehill?
I'm not because he had these garbage quarterbacks.
It was 1 fewer target per game, 5.7. So what's his ceiling? 6.7 targets per game?
No, I mean,
Why would that be his ceiling? One target more from a rookie going to a sophomore when he's not going to play with Malik Willis and Dobbs? No.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm a little rookies in small sample sizes. I'm kind of hesitant to use those stats, and even rookies in full season. I mean, if the guy's good, he's going to take a statistical jump that you couldn't have exactly forecasted in his second year. In a lot of cases, like I don't know that you could have expected Devontae Smith to finish as a top 12 or I think he was 12th, something like that, wide receiver last year. But I was looking how many games in which these receivers that were going around round 3 had fewer than 50 yards. And Devontae Smith, I think, had 5 of them last year, and all of them came before the Dallas Goedert injury. So we'll have to talk about that on another episode of Fantasy Football Today. Thanks to Dave and Heath. Tomorrow it's Heath and Dan Schneier with talk about bust-proof players. Bust-proof. Tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today. See you later.